Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. We'd like to welcome you to our live stream today. Well, finances, growing up as Jehovah's Witnesses or something like that, or even if you weren't and you became a Jehovah's Witness, what's your view on finances? We know that in current times, the Watchtower has encouraged even children to give their money, the ice cream money, to Watchtower as a wonderful way to be able to show their love for Jehovah. If you've ever done a quick build, who paid your way to the site? If you stayed in the motel, who paid for that? There's been lots of things that Watchtower has encouraged most Jehovah's Witnesses to put ahead of a lot of things, such as if you need to go to a district convention, rely on Jehovah and leave your job, your well-paying job in some cases. You come back and you have no job, no money. How do you live? And yet they still demand, well, strongly encourage would be a better set of words, to give money to them. From the platforms, they would really encourage us at least once a year, years ago, to give money. And they would say, this is the way you can give money, and list in the article many ways we can do that. In more recent times, they use JW Broadcasting, and they have the governing body standing there basically begging for money when they say, we have more money going out than we have coming in. So now that we're out, where is our mindset? Do we still struggle with finances? Do we struggle with thinking about, well, what am I going to do with my retirement? Because as many of the older Bethel members who no longer are there found out, they were encouraged strongly by being removed from Bethel, and all their hope of security is gone. Well, today we have a wonderful guest who's going to be helping us to be able to look at finance, and we're going to find out a little bit more of a healthy view of finance. So let's bring our guest on, and we'll introduce Caroline to us today. And how are you this morning, Caroline?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. We're both in the morning, just different days, and we've both had rain.
Yes.
We
both had rain,
dry?
yes. I managed to, yes. I just stay inside.
Well, that's a good thing. I've been out a little bit.
We had a deluge yesterday, so.
Did you? Well, we've really appreciated you coming on and letting us have a chat about finance. So
thank you
tell
for
us a
having
little
me.
bit. Oh, it's great. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what sort of encouraged you to get into the aspect of finances and high control groups such as the Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses and other such organizations like that.
Yes. Thank you. So I'm Caroline. I'm an unconditional love and transitions success coach. I help people move from difficult situations to living a healthy and successful life. So the folks that I work with are those who find themselves in high groups, relationships, situations, and the Jehovah Witnesses definitely fall in the category. So I did spend 3 years within the Jehovah's Witnesses. Never took a plunge into membership, but I lived the culture. I formed relationships. I learned the faith. And unfortunately, when I parted ways, I was shunned. And, I experienced many of the difficulties that a lot of people experienced. So I was somewhat prepared for that. I spent 22 years in Mormonism. They don't shun to the extent, of course, the witnesses do, but they do they do shun, and I struggled with that. they have their own special brand of it. And that experience in Mormonism, I just, you think about it, I think that's where my journey really began. It
Right.
enabled me and it qualified me to help others leave those kind of groups. And then I obtained my goal coaching certification and did a little further research and recognized that one of the major obstacles to people who come out of those groups are financial,
Yep.
especially the women who come out of those groups. And it seems so easy to the people that are on the outside. They look at you and they hear little bits and pieces about us where they don't celebrate birthdays, they don't celebrate holidays, and they just think that's a big festival because you're coming out now. You get to do all these things that you were never able to do to begin with, but there are so many other things that are underlying that you have to deal with, and these struggles are missed, and people are afraid coming out. They're afraid to ask. They're embarrassed. They're ashamed. And really all preconditioning that these groups put on. They're pros at mind conditioning. They condition us and essentially brainwash us. And we come out, we don't even know sometimes the questions that we need to ask. Let alone ask them.
Yep. So when you think about groups like the Jehovah's Witnesses, how can what you do really help us?
So leading a group such as the Jehovah's Witnesses may appear to seem easy to everybody. Like I said, there are obvious obstacles we'll face, but less obvious struggles, things like, how do I take care of myself? My husband worked and paid the bills. Now I'm single and I don't know where to begin. I'm alone. How do I get an apartment? What is credit? Why do I need credit to qualify? And other important things such as retirement and raising children and educating children. Where I come in, you come to me, I'm that non-judgmental person who helps you work it all out, and I'll celebrate your successes with you. I've been there. I've gone through the process with not one, but two, actually three groups, where I actually subjected myself, and I say subjected myself to the cultures because I really wanted to learn from the inside out what I was going through. And then I studied and I learned how to help people overcome it. And so when you give me a call, we'll take a look at your own unique situation. Everybody's different. No two people are the same. And so each struggle is going to be unique. We'll break it down and we'll figure it out.
Yeah. So what sort of things are we talking about? Say, for example, like the Jehovah's Witnesses, they didn't encourage us to save for the future because paradise was coming in. We didn't need an education. We didn't need to have a retirement plan. We were just going to be able to carry on as normal, let alone get educated, and then system of things was going to end and we wouldn't need those things. So why waste time?
Right.
How could you help
So I think
our mindset?
Yeah, that's a real struggle, and it's tricky because the answer actually is a part of the trigger. We all have triggers when we come out. We all have things that we can't face. I know when I came out of Mormonism, the last thing that I wanted to do was admit that I was financially irresponsible. That was back in 2006, and it was difficult for me because I wasn't even sure how to budget my money, but I was afraid of it, and I was afraid of asking people. So the trick is, first of all, understanding that these have an underlying cause. They have an underlying reason, and that reason is, from what I've been able to ascertain, when you're in the Jehovah's Witness group, you are essentially taught that they are the only true faith out there.
Yep.
Right. So every other group out there is wrong. There's no truth outside this group. And this is conditioned. You are conditioned by the Jehovah Witness on a subconscious level. So you don't really even understand. You don't know that this is happening. And then you learn all of these foundational beliefs, things like you pay the watchtower first, things like you don't need to plan for retirement because, Armageddon's around the corner, right?
Yeah.
Things like just give your extra money to the watchtower because you're not going to be here.
Yeah.
We got the truth. Don't worry about it. Plus, women are put in a very inferior role. They're marginalized in these groups.
Definitely.
And so the men take care of the money. Now, if you're a single Jehovah's Witness or if you're a convert, where I was headed towards, I was also a convert into Mormonism because my ex-husband was Mormon.
Yep.
And he wanted his children raised in that faith. So one Christian religion is as good as the next, right? So I learned to let him handle the money. I learned to help him to let him do all of that stuff. I helped here and there. I budgeted for the household needs, but he gave me the money to do that. I worked full time, but he still gave me the money to do that. And so you're conditioned to do this and come out of the group. Now all of a sudden you're on your own. You're embarrassed. You've left, but subconsciously you still have these internal triggers, but you've renounced the faith and subconsciously you've been taught that there's no other truth. Only 80% to 85% of everyone who leaves these types of groups are atheists.
Yeah.
They become atheists. They discount faith altogether. They deny God altogether. They kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater, and they're not doing it intentionally. And they're not wrong to do that. They've been hurt. They've been lied to.
Yeah.
But those underlying beliefs prevent them from moving forward. So the first thing I always do is suggest that you don't have to jump right back into theology or faith or religion when you leave, but the first thing I always encourage is not to form an opinion. Be open to faith at some point in your life. Don't turn your back on the Bible. Honestly, it's one of the best for financial instruction there are, in a tangible, practical, temporal manner. It doesn't have to, the knowledge is there. You don't even have to turn to that book. You just have to acknowledge that might be a possibility. And then there are a lot of other resources we can look at depending on your individual needs. So that's where I start. I don't know if that answered your question, but.
Okay, we just had a question come in along those. Yeah, we just had a question come in. I'll just put it up on the screen. It's from Loretta.
Sure.
Can you see it there?
And I'm actually not able to see it.
Okay. She says, I am and I'm not sure what an SSDI is, and live in a personal care home and want to put out with my boyfriend or get out with my boyfriend. But how can we move out when we don't have much money? Do you know what an SSDI is?
That's a good question.
Loretta,
Social Security Disability Income.
Okay, all right, that's cool. So what would be a practical way?
That's a really good question. So if you're in a personal, is that sort of like a residential facility where you have minimal care, or I'm not 100% familiar with what a personal care home is. Being that it's disability income, it sounds as if perhaps they provide just your basic care when needed. It's really a difficult question. And it's one that you would have to look at your financial situation, the money versus the going out, and determine what you could actually afford. There are other options out there to your personal care homes. They might be a little more pricey. I know when you're on Social Security disability, there is a minimum amount that you can actually make without losing your disability. So
Yep.
you'd want to look into what that amount is if you're able to be employed at all. And if you are, then look at your options. Honestly, a lot of people who are on disability income still work. They just have to find out what their perimeters are. So I would suggest you calling the Social Security. You being on SSDI, more than likely you have a caseworker or a case manager. Give them a call and see if there's anything that you could do to bring in that income, whether it's, telemarketing, interviewing, going to the computer and filling out surveys. Bring in that extra income, and then you could research and look at your options as far as housing. I have, heard that those facilities can be uncomfortable, and there might be a better option out there, but it would take some legwork. And if you were to reach out to me, we never charge anyone. There's never a fee for our services. Um, I would just simply work with you. We have found that people, they don't like something for nothing. So we encourage them to contribute just to help the next person. But it's completely on as far as whatever you can do. And give us a call and we'll take a look at the issue. If we don't know the answer, we'll find someone who does for you and help you do some of the legwork. But that's where I would start.
Cool. Hopefully that's answered your question, Loretta. What we will do is when we've finished the live stream, we'll make sure we get Caroline's contact details, because
Thank you.
that'll be a good way to be able to get some practical help. So, and we'll find out a little bit more of what those details towards the end of the live stream are. Now, just before we go on to the next point, you mentioned the word financially irresponsible.
Mm-hmm.
What
Yeah.
What are you meaning? What does that describe?
Well, coming out of Mormonism, especially, they have a program set up. It's the LDS Social Services Welfare Program, is what they call it. And so, anytime you have a financial issue, anytime you have a need, you don't go and get a part-time job to bring in extra income. You don't go
Oh,
on
really?
unemployment even a lot of times.
Yep.
You go to your bishop, and your bishop says, are you paying a full tithe? You say yes. They verify that, and if you are, they'll write a check and pay your bills. So you don't necessarily, and I understand with the COVID pandemic, they've sort of tightened up on that, but they encourage it. In a sense, they do it, of course, in the name of a full tithing and self-sufficiency, but essentially what it does is it imprisons you, especially if you're a female, because the man is the breadwinner most of the time. Women might work part-time outside of the house. I know with Jehovah's Witnesses, I saw a lot of part-time work where the husband and the wife worked part-time so that they could accommodate the what the woman's called tracking, the door-to-door, the pioneering.
Yep.
And so you come out and all of a sudden you're on your own. You've never been shown a budget in your life. You're a girl, and you don't know what to do with your money. You go out, you find a job. It may not be the best job. I ran into customer service. I've got 35 years of customer service under my belt. I've got a associate in business administration. So that's what I fell back on. I went and found myself a job in a call center, and it was payday to Monday. It paid the bills, and anything I had left over, I spent. I've got this much. Now I can go out and buy this, and I didn't know how to take and save a portion of it. I didn't understand that tithing meant something else other than giving it to the Jehovah's Witness or giving it to the Mormon, administration. I didn't realize that I could put that money back. I didn't have a 401k. I knew that retirement was coming up. You contribute to Social Security. I thought I'd get a Social Security check, and I didn't know. And so that made me irresponsible. If you lose your job, you can't pay your bills. You don't have a house. You don't have an apartment. And then you're in big trouble. So, I started noticing that trend in a lot of the clients that came to me, and they were broke. They lived paycheck to paycheck. And in some cases, they get paid on a Friday, and by Monday, that money would be gone. I could relate to that. And that was me for a few years until I said, okay, this is ridiculous. I'm working in a call center. I'm moving up. I need some help. And then I personally reached out to my supervisor at the time, and I took her aside, and she was a great lady, and we still talk, and I'm so, so grateful because I just said, hey, look, I came out of the situation. This is not work related, but I want to change, and I want to grow. And she said, I'll help you. And so, we set a 5-year plan for me, and I started moving up, and I found I had extra money, and she said, hey, why don't you give these people a call? And so it happened to be a financial advising firm, and I reached out to them, and I explained my situation to them, and I was blessed again, and said, the gentleman told me, you know what, we generally charge, we only do investing, but because of your situation, we're going to help you. And he showed me how to budget. And, by 2009, I was working full time in Los Angeles, Burbank, California, and had a great job. And,
Good.
Things are coming together. So I kind of got lucky in that sense. But a lot of people that come out, the majority of people that come out, they just don't know how to go forward. They don't know how to move forward. And they don't know how to find the people that'll help them.
Yeah, good. Amy's just asked a question. She says, I'm wondering how to build credit. I have none, but do not have bad credit. So far, I've got $1,000. Oh, sorry. I've got $1,000 loan. I just put that in a savings account and paid that loan off to build credit. I also have a credit card with $1,000 max limit that I only use about $300 charge on, but I own my car and rent. Is there more I can do to build a credit without much disposable income?
Yeah, first of all, congratulations, because that $1,000 loan, you paying it off, that's amazing. That will help a lot. I would say on those monthly payments on that credit card, instead of paying the minimum, pay a little bit over the minimum every month. When you do that, you establish additional credit. Over time, it builds up. It's great that you own your car. I would say when you get your credit card paid off, charge something little on it every month and pay it off promptly. As soon as you get that bill, pay it off. If you can pay it off in full, the more frequently you can do that, the better off you're going to be. I don't know how old or how new your car is. Generally, when your credit reaches about 640, 650, you can usually get a fairly decent interest rate on your car. Consider perhaps those necessities, a reliable car. Once your car gets a little older and to the point where you can possibly trade it in, look for those low interest bargains. Go with someone who knows what they're talking about if you can't find anyone, look online. Make sure you know what the blue book value is of your car going into the trade. Read up and study on how to negotiate and what to look for in a car sale. Because a lot of times what they do is they stack that loan on the backside. And so you end up paying more in interest and you end up what they call upside down in the loan. So you want to be really careful with that. But a car and those other necessary purchases are always good investments. I would steer clear of more credit cards. 1 or 2 credit cards, would you pay them promptly and you don't have any issues with just paying the minimum, but you're paying that little bit extra, that helps boost your credit. Other than that, I wouldn't go very much further with that. But your major purchases are what's going to really help you. Don't go overboard. Do one thing at a time, and it'll pay off. There's not really any quick fix. I also recommend places like Credit Karma are a great resource to check on your credit. Make sure there are no issues with identity theft or anything that might have been placed on your account incorrectly. I know I had an issue with my last name is Sowers, and there was Caroline Sowers that was she was in a different state, but she spelled her last name S-A-U instead of S-O-W, and her information actually got on my credit report. So mistakes can happen, and she didn't have the best credit. And once I wrote the bureaus and explained what had happened, they were able to correct that, and that boosted my credit score. So you just want to be careful that everything is correct on it too, and then just be patient. And I'm the worst person to say that because I want patience. I just want them now. So
of course.
Yeah, of course. But congratulations on your start. You're doing great.
Yeah, and this is a little message from Amy for you, and she says thank you.
You are very welcome,
practical
Amy.
advice.
Hope it helps.
Hey. So if anybody else has any questions they would like to ask while the live stream is going, please put them in the comment section, and we'll get Caroline to have a chat. But of course, we will put the contact details for later on if you'd like to reach out to Caroline and you appreciating what you're hearing. So some of these things, though, don't affect anybody outside the US. Like here in New Zealand, I had no idea what an SSDI is. We have such like things here, though. So the same sort of principles, does that apply in just about any country? Like you're talking about the credit cards and things like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not as familiar. I have a little bit of familiarity with Canada. I have worked with a few people from Canada, being from Ohio myself. Toronto is just north of us, and so I've come in contact with a few people that have struggled. From what I understand, one of the biggest issues is healthcare and healthcare costs. I know for the States and for Canada, there seems like, because it's I don't call it, it's like a global, everyone has insurance. But there are often concerns with, lists and not being able to always get that care immediately. And so the two people that I've actually worked with, they were dual citizenship. And so there were some dynamics there that we had to work with. But they have the same concerns, how to handle retirement, retirement plans that were very similar to the 401ks and the IRAs. And, it was basically the same thing, the same person to tell what the cost is going to be when you retire. So different products, different tools and different mechanisms, but the same basic principles. The only real difference was the healthcare situation.
Okay, cool. Amy's come back with another question with regards to future planning. Do you think The no down payment home loans
The no down.
for lower, the lower income people is a bad idea.
Are you talking about the first buyer programs, that sort of thing, where they have the zero interest loans?
We'll see if Amy comes back with some more details. So you sort of need to know a bit
Well,
of detail,
I know
don't you?
that the government, yeah, I mean, I know the government they have some programs for time buyers,
Yep.
lower or limited incomes. And no, I don't think that that's a bad idea necessarily. I just think that you need to make sure you have the savings in the bank before you do that. And I also think that you have to look at your property value. So a lot of times those first time buyer programs, the homes that they have available, at least I know here in the US, they're not always in the best areas, and you may not always be getting your money's worth, especially if you get into a long term loan. So you have to sort of weigh your options. Take a look at the program, make sure that if it's a zero interest loan, it's not a flex loan where your interest is going to increase when you get to say your 5-year point. Make sure that it's a fixed interest. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a good idea as long as you're and you're completely knowledgeable and you have finances available to pay for it. Go into the commitment. If you don't have that foundation, then you're going to get yourself in trouble if you, for some reason, lose that income, or if there's a glitch in the system. If you don't have it to pay, then what? So just be careful. Make sure you know all the ins and outs of what you're doing before you go into it.
Right. Yeah, it was an HUD loan she's talking about.
A HUD loan, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Actually, they're the government. They're good programs. Just make sure you've got the money in the bank. I think the general rule right now is 4 to 6 months worth of living expenses banked.
Hopefully that answered. She came back with another question. How much savings for the home loan?
So I would say, I would say about 4 to 6 months worth, because I mean, look at the COVID pandemic. That caused a lot of issues, and some payments were late. I know with the SSDI, those payments, I don't think they saw a lot of delay this time, but things happen. And so you want to be financially prepared, to take care of yourself in case of an emergency.
Yeah, she said that's a lot of savings with a big wow at the front.
It can be. Yeah, it can be. But I think people do go into it with, a couple months worth. And then when something happens, all of a sudden they're relying on food pantries, they're relying on government programs to help them pay their bills. You've got electric, your utilities, property taxes, if they're not included in your mortgage. So you just want to make sure that you've got that. What you might want to do, because I don't have information right in front of me, there are places you can call that offer that financial advice. I know you've got, I can't think of any companies right now. Thrivent, I know, does. I would look up in the, phone book. I don't know if Edward Jones, I don't know if they assist with that kind of stuff. But there are companies out there that will sit down with you and look at your financial situation and say, I think you're in good shape for a HUD, or you're not in good shape, but this is what you need to do, because this is what real estate is running in your area. Without knowing where you are, I'm in Columbus, Ohio. I'm more familiar with the market. But the market is different everywhere. And different, state by state, even city by city sometimes. But I would definitely recommend finding yourself a no-fee financial advisor to help you get yourself back on track.
All right, Amy's come back with a little bit more information. She's starting from scratch and she's 49 years old. She wants to do what is right. So you're giving some very practical help. Is there anything else you could recommend her do?
I would just recommend that you have a budget, a solid budget. Know what you've got coming in versus what you've got going out, and live under your means if at all possible. Because the more you save, the more you put away for retirement. And I would focus on your savings and your retirement before you jump into a home purchase situation. Find out what you need to live on in retirement, and then plan. And once you've got all of that figured out, absolutely go for that. Go for that house.
Okay, so
faster than you think it will.
Yeah. So you mentioned the budget. Like, I was never really shown a budget growing up. So you mentioned women having a hard time. Some guys also have a hard time.
Right.
What is a budget really designed to help everybody with?
A budget is designed where your money goes and what you've got coming in versus what you've got going out.
Okay.
Especially a lot of your younger kids now, most people don't even know how to balance a checkbook. If the internet were to go down tomorrow, people that are my age would have a higher chance, of survival as opposed to someone who just graduated yesterday, because how to balance a checkbook, because most people don't write checks anymore. They've got this debit card, right? And when that money is gone, it's gone. So they budget by saying, okay, I've got this bill to pay. I've got this much in my bank account. I'll just pay that bill with that bank card. Yeah. And then when they're out of money, they're out of money. And the next bill comes in and, oh my gosh, I don't have to pay for that anymore. I have to wait for my next. Or if they've got a normal bank account, they see the non-efficient fund fees in their bank account because checks are bouncing. And if you talk to them, it wasn't their fault. They didn't know that the bank charged their account $5 that would put them in the negative. It only takes a penny for a check to bounce. It only takes a penny for that payment to be rejected with your bank. And if that payment hits 2 minutes, which it's usually hours, but if that payment hits the day after, they take that monthly fee out of your account and you don't have enough money in there. Now all of a sudden you're 35, 70, however many transactions were rejected in the hole, you've got a negative balance. So your budget is there to help you understand what you've got coming in, when it's coming in during the month, and what bills you can pay and when, so you can prevent things like that from happening. Also shows you how much you've got to allot to savings. And the first thing any good budget will tell you is that you want to pay yourself first. So you never want to put yourself short if you can help it. Now, that doesn't mean if you've got $1,000 in your bank account and is $950, you want to pay yourself that $50 first. It means that that budget is going to show you what you've got to work with, if that makes sense.
Yeah, does make sense. Obviously, a bit of life teaches you these things about budgeting, but it would be so much better to have it sorted out when we're younger.
I honestly wish they would teach these things in school now. They don't even teach cursive right here. Don't know.
No.
I don't know where it's that way where you live, but they're teaching a completely different math.
Yes,
technique.
definitely.
You still get the same and I have young ones around me who I have to print everything because they can't read that cursive. So I definitely
Really?
wish that things were a little different.
Yeah. So we could really encourage everybody, no matter what their situation is, to get some practical help on this, couldn't we?
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay, Amy's come back with another point. She says, I have an account set up that pays my bills with auto pay. They round up the totals and put the difference in a savings. I looked the other day and couldn't believe how it added up in a year.
Yes. Fantastic. It does add up. All those little pennies add up. And that's a great way to that is actually called the roundup method, where you round up on your bills. And you can actually show that in your budget by recording all of the exact amounts due and then rounding those up and taking the difference and moving it over to a third column, just like a random column, miscellaneous, and then totaling that up and you bank it. It's a very effective way of doing that. I like the fact that the auto pays are doing that for you.
Yeah, we have one bank in New Zealand that does it automatically once it's put into place. But it's the only one that I've seen advertise that that's what they do. And I never understood what it was until just now. Mind you, I never went to their bank and said, what the hell's this all about?
Yeah, I think there are some standard online banks here that actually do that as well. So, yeah.
Amy's come back and said, do you use an app or program to track your budget? Or is it on a piece of paper?
I do both.
Okay.
I have QuickBooks. I have QuickBooks, which there's a free version of it that is very limited. Then, of course, since I have some other things going on, I purchased the one of the other versions that they have, which allow for residual income coming in, and there's things I can do with it. But they do have a free version. There are other apps out there that'll help you budget. I know the Samsung budget app is great, but there are some good apps out there. I've not seen them all, and you can definitely put everything in your phone. If you're going to get an app, I do use your phone, and instead of going on, download that app, and each time you purchase even the smallest things, keep track of your spending that way. And a lot of times that's a great way to actually see what you're spending, because sometimes we just don't know. I didn't realize that every time I went to fill up my car, if I saw some little something, like a bottle of water, oh, I'm thirsty, grab that bottle of water, and those little impulse purchases add up. So it's a great way to keep track of it.
Yep. Well, I hope that's helped, Amy. Thank you very much for the questions. Okay, so let's just go back to where we were going through. You started to talk about some of the conditioning and the triggers in our head. We all have them.
I think I lost you.
Oh, can you hear us now?
I can, yes, but I heard part of the question.
Okay, no, that's cool. In the information we were talking about before, in our head, we've been programmed subconsciously to do certain things and do things in a way that aren't always healthy or helpful to ourselves. How can the conditioning that we've been part of in the high control groups, what can you encourage us to do?
I encourage you, and I see, especially in the groups, where everybody talks about their triggers, but they talk about them in a really general way because these things cause anxiety. They cause fear. I mean, I myself, coming out of Mormonism, I had severe anxiety attacks, not just because of the way I was treated on my way out, but because of the fact that I was lied to. And it was really the ultimate betrayal for me. And to risk, I guess this is a trigger alert. I was very confused coming out. I didn't want to confront the betrayal part of that faith. I didn't want to consider the things that I had learned about myself. And I didn't want to admit that I was struggling and that I might have to seek out help. And anytime that certain things happened in my life, if they were the least bit traumatizing, I would go into a panic attack. My mind went down. I didn't want to hear some things. I had a really hard time with it. So I think it's important for us. I mean, don't face every single trigger at once. We don't want, to be found in a corner with a straitjacket. I always tell everybody if they find me in the corner or I'm under my desk rocking, I want my straitjacket to be purple and I want a sparkly tiara. Because I'm always the unique one. But these things that hold us back, these trigger points for us, you think you're jumping over the obstacles, you think you're succeeding in some way, but you're actually hurting yourself. Your purpose right now is to transition successfully out of a high demand group. It's a cult, a pseudo-Christian cult. Let's call it what it is. Just because they're wrong doesn't mean that all other avenues to a supreme being are wrong. I struggled with it. I struggled with not having a support system. I struggled with people who I thought didn't care. It really hinders your successful transition to a life of happiness and self-sufficiency. So I'm not, like I said, I'm not saying dive back into that. And I know it's a little traumatizing to think about it. What I am saying is acknowledge that that's happened. Be open.
Right.
Don't be so hard. Don't be so hardcore about it. Understand that there are things we don't understand in this world, and that the only question that's stupid is the one that we've never asked. And the only way you're going to fail is to avoid it and not try. There are a ton of things out on the internet that you can just Google. Budgeting, retirement, finances. What is money? That's the biggest, honestly, that's the biggest hurdle that people, they don't understand what money is, and they don't know to ask, what's money? You think money is something that you pay bills with. Well, that's true. That's what you do with money. But what is money really? Money is energy. That's really that definition. You are, the money is paper that we as humans have assigned value. We have, and because of that value, it has power. What is power? Power is energy. So you have to understand how it works. You have to understand how to utilize it, how to manipulate it. It's not the evil that you've been taught. And we've all heard the phrase, the fear of love, or the root of the love of money is the root of all evil.
Yep.
And that comes from, I can't think of the first Timothy 6:10, I think. For the love of money is the root of all evil. But there's a trigger alert again. There's an additional part of that verse that we miss. It's for the love of all money is the root of evil, which while some coveted after, they have erred in front of the faith and pierced themselves through many sorrows. Now, I did just read that. And of course, I'm not going to repeat the entire stupid chapter, not stupid, but the entire chapter. But if you continue on and you get to verse 18, it does elaborate. It says, they that do good, that they be rich in good works, ready to distribute and willing to communicate. And verse 19 goes on to say, if you'll bear with me for just a bit longer here, laying up and store themselves a good foundation against the time to come, that they may lay hold of eternal life. Now, so right there, we're told that we're supposed to distribute our wealth, help those in need, and be good stewards. You know, saving responsibility for retirement, and in doing so, then we receive our reward in heaven. Now, that doesn't mean that we should live in poverty and give all of our money to the watchtower, but we've been preconditioned. We have been. So we've left the group, but we're still carrying out their purpose by turning our attention away from it and not understanding why we fight against it. We're giving them the power. We really are, because we're failing. We're coming out and we're failing. It's only when we love money more than we love God, that's when the money becomes a problem. So in other words, don't be obsessed with money. It's really not about that obsession. It's a tool for you to use. I'm not necessarily asking that you buy into the theology involved, but instead just to point out that these groups are they're professionals, and their sole goal is to twist the truth. And even when we leave, that enables them to manipulate us. And many of our belief patterns that we're conditioned to believe are the very things that prevent us from being successful in such areas as finances and becoming completely self-sufficient and trigger-free. So just by acknowledging them and not trying to make any sudden or harsh judgments, that would prevent you from facing your triggers and facing them head on. So once you do this, then you can once you do that, you can tackle that part of your struggle head on.
Great. Yeah, we certainly have been drip-fed, indoctrinated into all sorts of things. And if we don't face them head on and don't work on them, they're going to affect us for the rest of our life.
Exactly. And, the nice thing is we don't have to do it alone.
No,
we really don't.
You're right.
No. But contrary to what they want you to believe, look, they've shut you out of their life. They've completely stopped talking to you. They've left you for all intents and purposes alone. But there are a lot of other people in this world who care. And definitely. They love you, and they're not judgmental no matter what you're programmed to believe. They're willing to help you. I'm willing to help you. Reach out to me. We'll figure it out together.
So while we're talking about reaching out to you, we're going to put the details in the description and things like that. What's one of the best ways to be able to do that? Is it a web page you've got?
Yeah, so you can go to carolinesowers.com. That's just it's CAROLINES, like Sam, OWERS.com. It is, we're in the process of expanding that. So over the course of the next few weeks, you'll see an entirely different page. Right now, there's a lot of churchy things on there. You can bypass all of that. You're welcome to read it. I'd love for you to read it. But if you're not comfortable with that, just go straight to the contact page, shoot me an email, and I'll respond. There's also a contribution link on there, my PayPal. If you want to help out, help me help others, that would be so appreciated. I don't feel like I really feel like this is a calling. I feel like it's the reason that I went through the entire 22 years on Mormonism, 3 years in Jehovah Witnesses, and I spent some time in the Christian Science world as well, and Seventh-day Adventist, and all of which have their own special brand of conditioning, and so I feel like that I went through all of that so that God, whoever you want to call him, could work through me. And so I never asked for a cent. If it's on your heart, that's great. But just reach out to me, send me a message, and I will return your call, usually within 24 hours, or email, however you feel comfortable reaching out to me.
Yep. Well, we've certainly appreciated you being on our live stream this morning.
Thank you.
And giving the practical help. Just very simple, practical steps can make a big difference to us all.
I think so. And also just sticking together and helping one another.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you for inviting me.
No, thank you for the work that you're doing. And
Thank you.
for those who are on the live stream or will be watching it later, by all means, reach out to Caroline. We'll put the details, like I said, in the comments and the description so that we can get the information out there. We're no longer part of the J-Dubs, and our thinking, which triggers us, needs to be taken down step by step, broken down so it doesn't trigger us at all.
Thank
So
you.
thank you once again for being here, Caroline. And
Thank you.
just keep in mind, we'll have another live stream next week. At this stage, it's going to be about our self-esteem. Now, if you really want help, there is another group that works alongside the Life After group, and we call that Dare to Dream. So in way of conclusion to our video, we'll say goodbye now. You keep safe, keep dry, keep out of the sun, don't get burnt if you've got that, which doesn't sound like many places have that at the moment. But we look forward to seeing you again on the live stream. Thank you once again for being here and for the support that you give the channel and the Facebook group and for those who come on. So thank you once again. We look forward to seeing you next time here in the Life After J-Dubs group.